Welcome to Psyche Talks.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're diving deep into the power of habit. We're specifically exploring the core ideas from the audiobook Atomic Habits.
Yeah, a really popular one and for good reason.
Exactly. So our mission here is to pull out the most valuable principles, practical strategies, for building good habits, and maybe ditching some bad ones, all tailored for you listening.
And we'll try to ground it with some compelling examples, maybe some insights that aren't immediately obvious.
Definitely. Okay, so maybe the best place to start is with the author's own story. It's pretty striking.
It really is. His recovery from a quite severe baseball injury, ending up in a coma.
Yeah.
It's not just background info. It really illustrates this whole idea of small steps, incremental progress.
Right, because he wasn't exactly a star athlete in high school, from his own telling.
No, apparently quite unremarkable. But then, post-injury, he bounces back to become a top college athlete, gets academic honors. It's a huge shift.
So what changed? What was the key thing for him?
Well, he points to this realization in college. He discovered that these really small, consistent actions, tiny improvements, like in his weightlifting form or his study habits, they were the difference maker.
Ah, so not some massive overnight change.
Not at all. It was this gradual buildup, these marginal gains. And that really sets the scene for the book's main idea. Big results often come from tiny, everyday choices that seem almost insignificant at the time.
And he applied this later too, right, with his writing.
Yeah, exactly. He talks about starting a simple writing habit, just publishing articles consistently. And that habit was apparently key to building this huge email list, which then led to the book itself.
So this concept, small habits, big results, it's got some real legs. It's not just a feel-good idea.
Oh, absolutely. There's solid evidence. A really powerful example is the transformation of British cycling, under Dave Brailsford.
Oh yeah, the cycling team, they were kind of mediocre for ages, weren't they?
For years, yeah. Then Brailsford came in with this concept he called the aggregation of marginal gains. Basically finding a 1% improvement in absolutely everything they could think of.
That's the one where they got super detailed. I remember reading about things like optimizing hand washing to avoid illness,
Right.
testing different massage gels, even painting the inside of the team truck white to spot dust easier.
Exactly. It sounds almost obsessive, but the results were just incredible.
They started winning everything, didn't they? Olympics, Tour de France.
Total dominance, yeah.
Yeah.
Multiple Tour de France wins.
Yeah.
It's such a clear demonstration of how these tiny 1% improvements, when you layer them and let them compound, they lead to truly remarkable outcomes.
The math behind it is pretty stark, too. The book mentions getting 1% better each day for a year.
Mhm.
Makes you about 37 times better, but getting 1% worse each day.
Yeah, that takes you down almost to zero. It really highlights the long-term impact of those small daily choices, positive or negative.
It puts things in perspective, and it connects to that idea of the plateau of latent potential, right?
Exactly. That's such a crucial concept. People often give up on new habits because they don't see results right away.
Yeah, you expect linear progress, but it often doesn't work like that.
Right. Think about, like, heating water. Nothing seems to happen for ages, 200 degrees, 210, 211. Then boom, one more degree to 212, and you get steam. A total transformation.
Hmm.
It's similar with habits. Those breakthroughs often come only after a period where the small actions have been accumulating, but haven't quite hit that critical point yet.
Okay, so if we're talking about these small, steady improvements, does that mean we should ditch big goals altogether? Like, forget the marathon goal or the big promotion?
Well, that's a really interesting point in the book. It's not about abandoning goals, but more about shifting focus towards systems.
Goals versus systems. Okay, break that down a bit.
So goals are about the result you want to achieve. Run the marathon, lose 20 pounds. Systems are the processes, the routines you follow that lead to those results.
Right, like your training schedule or your meal planning habits.
Exactly. And the argument is that focusing on the system is actually more effective for making real sustainable progress.
Why is that? I mean, goals give you direction, don't they?
They do, but think about it. Winners and losers often have the exact same goals. Every Olympian wants gold. Every job applicant wants the job. The goal itself isn't the differentiator.
Ah, okay. That's survivorship bias, right?
Yeah.
We only see the winners who had the goal, not all the others who had the same goal but failed.
Precisely. Plus, achieving a goal is often just a momentary change. You clean your messy room, goal achieved.
Yeah, it feels good for about 5 minutes.
Right. But if you don't change the system, the habits that led to the messy room in the first place, it's just going to get messy again.
So the system is about long-term change, not just a temporary fix.
Exactly. True improvement comes from refining the system, those daily and weekly actions, which leads naturally into another really key idea, the link between habits and identity.
Okay, this sounds deep. How do habits shape who we are? Or is it the other way around?
It's really a two-way street. The book argues that our habits shape our identity over time, but also our current self-image heavily influences which habits stick.
Meaning, if I don't see myself as a healthy person, it's hard to maintain healthy habits.
Very hard. Behavior that clashes with your sense of self is incredibly difficult to sustain long-term. You're constantly fighting yourself.
There was an example in the book, wasn't there? An entrepreneur, Brian Clark.
Yeah, Brian Clark. He realized he needed to shift his identity from someone who consumed content to someone who created content to make his business work. It wasn't just about setting output goals. It was about becoming a different type of person in his own mind.
So real habit change isn't just about doing something different, it's about becoming someone different.
That's the core idea. The goal isn't just to run a marathon. It's to become a runner. It's not just to read a book. It's to become a reader.
And every time you perform the habit,
It's like casting a vote for that identity. Every workout is a vote for being an athletic person. Every page read is a vote for being a reader. These small habits build up evidence for your brain.
evidence of the new identity. That's powerful. It reframes the whole thing.
The book talks about three levels of change: outcomes, process, and identity. And changing your identity is the deepest, most effective level.
Okay, so we understand the why identity, compounding. What about the how? The mechanics of habit formation?
Right, the science bit. It builds on earlier work, like Thorndike's experiments with cats. The law of effect rewarded behaviors tend to be repeated.
The cat in the box figuring out the lever.
Exactly. Habits are basically mental shortcuts the brain creates based on solutions that worked in the past. They automate behavior to save energy.
And there's a specific pattern.
Yes, a four-step loop that underlies every habit.
Yeah.
Cue, craving, response, reward.
Cue, craving, response, reward. Okay, let's unpack those.
Sure, the cue is the trigger, the thing that initiates the behavior. It could be a time, a place, an emotion, seeing something.
Like your phone buzzing, that's a cue.
Perfect example. Then comes the craving. This is the motivation, the desire, the anticipated feeling you want. It's not the habit itself you crave, but the change in state it delivers.
So with the phone buzz, the craving isn't to pick up the phone. It's maybe the craving for information or connection or distraction.
Precisely. The response is the actual habit you perform, picking up the phone, scrolling through social media.
Got it.
And finally, the reward. This is the satisfaction you get from the response. It teaches your brain that this loop is worth remembering and repeating. That little hit of dopamine, feeling connected, finding out something new.
Okay, cue, craving, response, reward. So understanding that loop is key to changing habits.
Absolutely. Because you can intervene at each stage. And that leads to the 4 laws of behavior change the book outlines.
Right, the practical framework. The first law is make it obvious, targeting the cue.
Yes. Since the cue kicks things off, you want to make cues for good habits obvious and cues for bad habits invisible.
So putting your running shoes by the door, that's making the cue obvious.
That's a simple form of environment design. Yeah. But there are more structured ways, too, like using implementation intentions.
Implementation intentions.
It's basically deciding in advance exactly when and where you'll act. The formula is, I will behave here at time and location.
So not just I'll exercise more, but I will go for a 30-minute run at 7 a.m. in the park near my house.
Exactly. Studies show this specificity dramatically increases the chances you'll actually do it. It makes the cue really clear and preloads the decision.
Takes the guesswork out. What else works for making cues obvious?
Another really good one is habit stacking.
Habit stacking, like piling them up.
Kinda, yeah. You link a new habit you want to form with one you already do consistently. The formula is, after current habit, I will new habit.
Okay, give me an example.
After I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. Or after I take off my work shoes, I will immediately change into my workout clothes.
Ah, you're anchoring the new habit to an existing routine. The end of the current habit becomes the cue for the new one.
Precisely. You can even chain several together. It leverages momentum. It reminds me a bit of the Diderot effect.
Where buying one new thing makes you want other new things that match.
Yeah, that spiral of consumption. Habit stacking is like the positive version. One good habit triggers the next.
Nice. Okay, so make cues obvious. Law number 2, make it attractive. This tackles the craving stage.
Exactly. Cravings drive habits, and they're linked to anticipating a reward. that dopamine hit. We need to make our desired habits more appealing.
But how do you make, say, doing taxes attractive or eating broccoli?
Huh, yeah, fair point. It's not always easy. But one powerful technique is temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling. Sounds intriguing.
That's where you pair an action you want to do with an action you need to do.
Okay. Like how?
Well, maybe you only allow yourself to watch your favorite Netflix show while you're on the treadmill.
Hmm.
Or you only listen to that gripping podcast during your commute.
Ah, so you link the want, the temptation with the need, the habit you're trying to build.
Exactly. The enjoyment of the want activity becomes associated with the need activity, making the craving for the habit stronger. It's based on something called Premack's principle, using a high probability behavior to reinforce a low probability one.
Clever. Using the reward of one thing to pull you through another. What else makes habits attractive?
Oh, a huge factor is our social environment. We have this deep desire to belong, to fit in. So we naturally find habits attractive if people around us are doing them.
Right, social norms.
Yeah. The book highlights 3 groups whose habits strongly influence us. The close, family and friends, the many, the general culture, conformity, and the powerful, people we admire or see as high status.
So if your friends are all into fitness, you're more likely to find it attractive.
Much more likely. Peer pressure works both ways. And we see this in studies on everything from obesity to even things like IQ scores spreading through social networks. We conform. Think of the Ash conformity experiments.
Where people agreed with obviously wrong answers just because everyone else did.
Yeah, exactly. So joining a group where your desired behavior is the norm can be incredibly powerful for making it attractive.
Surround yourself with the people whose habits you want to emulate. Makes sense. Okay, law 3. Make it easy. This targets the response part of the loop.
Yes. This taps into our natural tendency towards the path of least resistance. We are fundamentally wired to conserve energy, so the easier a habit is, the more likely we are to do it.
The law of least effort. So how do we reduce friction for good habits?
The big one is environment design again, but this time focused on ease. Prime your environment.
Like laying out your workout flows the night before.
Exactly. Or chopping vegetables for the week on Sunday, prepping healthy meals, keeping your book on your pillow, anything that reduces the number of steps between you and the desired action.
Removing obstacles. There was a story about a guy, Oswald Knuckles.
Yeah. Oswald Knuckles, the IT consultant. He had this habit of resetting the room, putting things back where they belong immediately, so the environment was always ready for the next intended action. It reduced future friction.
So make the starting process as smooth as possible.
Right. Another idea is mastering the decisive moment. These are small choices early on that have an outsized impact later.
Like choosing which restaurant to go to. That sets the stage for what you'll likely eat.
Precisely. Or just deciding not to walk down the snack aisle in the supermarket.
Yeah.
Optimize those small gateway decisions.
And then there's the 2-minute rule. I like this one.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Scale down any new habit until it takes less than 2 minutes to do.
So read before bed becomes read 1 page. Do yoga becomes take out my yoga mat.
Exactly. The goal is to master the art of showing up. Make the start so easy you can't say no. You can build up later, but getting started is often the hardest part. Make starting effortless.
It really lowers the barrier. You can almost always find 2 minutes.
And another aspect of easy is automation. Using technology or one-time actions that lock in future behavior.
Like setting up automatic savings transfers or subscribing to a healthy meal delivery service.
Yes. These make good habits effortless once set up. Though, there can be downsides to over-automating everything, but strategically, it's powerful.
Okay, that covers making it easy. Finally, the 4th law. Make it satisfying. This targets the reward stage.
Correct. This is crucial because we're more likely to repeat behaviors that feel good, that are satisfying. The problem is, many good habits have delayed rewards.
Right. Exercise benefits come later. Saving benefits come later. But cake, that's satisfying now.
Exactly. Our brains evolved in an environment where immediate returns were critical for survival. We're biased towards immediate gratification.
So the cardinal rule of behavior change needs an update.
Kind of. The book says, what is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. So we need to find ways to inject some immediate satisfaction into good habits.
How do we do that? Give ourselves a treat after exercising.
That's one way, using reinforcement. A small, immediate reward right after completing the habit can help bridge the gap until the long-term rewards kick in. But it needs to align with your overall goals, obviously.
Don't reward a workout with a giant sundae, maybe.
Probably not ideal, no.
Yeah.
Another way is to make the avoidance of a bad habit satisfying. Like, if you're trying to save money, create a specific savings account for something you want and transfer the money you didn't spend immediately. Seeing that account grow is satisfying.
Making progress visible.
Yes, which leads to the habit tracker. Simply tracking your habit completion can be incredibly satisfying.
Like putting an X on a calendar each day you do it.
Exactly. You get that little hit of satisfaction from checking it off. And, crucially, you don't want to break the chain.
Ah, the Seinfeld strategy. Don't break the chain of writing jokes every day.
That's the one. That visual proof of consistency becomes its own reward and motivation.
Okay, so that's making good habits satisfying. What about the flip side? Making bad habits immediately unsatisfying.
This is where things like accountability partners come in. Or even a habit contract.
A habit contract. Sounds serious.
It can be. You basically create a formal agreement, often with someone else, outlining the consequences if you engage in the bad habit.
Like, if I smoke a cigarette, I have to pay my friend $50.
Exactly. Or something maybe even more embarrassing or inconvenient. The key is making the punishment immediate and painful enough to deter you. The book mentions Brian Harris, an entrepreneur who set up a contract with his wife and coach with significant financial penalties if he didn't hit his writing targets.
Wow, that adds some real teeth to it. Having someone else watch you, plus a consequence, that makes the bad habit immediately less appealing.
Definitely. It leverages immediate punishment, which our brains are wired to avoid.
So those are the 4 laws. Obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying, a really practical toolkit.
Applying them consistently is key.
Now, the book also touches on talent and genetics, doesn't it? How does that fit in?
Yeah, it acknowledges that genes matter. People are naturally predisposed to certain skills or find certain activities easier or more enjoyable. It uses examples like Michael Phelps's physique for swimming or Shikshimil Garuja's build for middle-distance running.
So some people just have an edge.
They might have a predisposition, yes, but the point isn't that genes determine destiny. It's more about understanding your own inclinations. Habits are easier to stick with if they align with your natural abilities and interests.
Play a game where the odds are in your favor.
Kind of. Choose habits that you're likely to find satisfying in the long run because they suit your personality and skills. It's about working with your nature, not constantly fighting against it, for better long-term satisfaction. Focus on your own potential.
That makes sense. It's not just about forcing yourself, but finding the right fit. And what about keeping habits going long term, beyond just starting them?
Right. Maintaining momentum is crucial. The book talks about avoiding complacency once a habit is established, and the importance of reflection and review.
Like checking in on your progress.
Yeah. It mentions Pat Riley, the basketball coach, and his career best effort program with the Lakers, tracking player improvements, or using habit journals, or doing annual reviews to see what's working, what's not, and making adjustments.
That's not just set and forget. It's a continuous process.
Absolutely. Success isn't a finish line. It's a cycle of continuous refinement, always looking for that next small improvement.
It all comes back to those tiny gains, doesn't it?
It really does. You can even see how the 4 laws tie into fundamental human drives. Making it obvious is about awareness. Attractive taps into desire and craving. Easy relates to taking action. And satisfying is about motivation and reinforcement.
And the book touches on happiness too, right? How desire fits in.
Yeah, it suggests that happiness is maybe the state before desire kicks in, just observing without craving. Craving is essentially wanting to fix something, feeling a gap.
And suffering is the gap between craving something and getting it.
Right. So understanding that cycle can itself be helpful. And recognizing that your why, your deeper motivation, can help you push through when things get tough. Being curious, being motivated, often matters more than just raw talent or intelligence.
Emotions driving behavior.
Fundamentally. And our expectations shape how satisfying things feel. It all interconnects.
Wow. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground from Atomic Habits. We've definitely done more than scratch the surface today.
Hopefully it's giving you listening some powerful ideas to think about, maybe experiment with.
Yeah, the main takeaway for me is just how impactful those small, seemingly minor changes can be when you stick with them. That compounding effect is real.
It truly is. Consistency is the superpower here.
So maybe the question for everyone listening is, what small habit will you start building today?
Good question to ponder.
Thank you for your support and for listening.